Let's start with a question. How often do your emotions dictate your day? I know what it feels like to let a single bad moment snowball into hours, even days, of frustration. It could be someone's careless comment, an unexpected setback, or just the weight of everything piling up. I've been there, stuck in that spiral where every little thing feels personal and overwhelming. But let me tell you something, there's a way out. You don't have to be at the mercy of your emotions anymore. You can train yourself to stay calm, steady, and in control no matter what life throws your way. It's not about shutting off your feelings or pretending you don't care. It's about learning to master them so they don't master you. I remember a time when even small challenges could derail me. A missed deadline, panic, a disagreement, overthinking for days. My emotions were like an untamed wildfire, consuming everything in their path. And the worst part, it felt like I couldn't do anything about it. I thought this was just how life worked, until I discovered a better way. That better way starts with shifting your mindset. It's about realizing that while you can't always control what happens to you, you can always control how you respond. Let me say that again. You always have a choice in how you respond. Once that truth sinks in, it changes everything. This isn't some abstract philosophy or feel-good advice. It's practical, and it works. I've used it when faced with people who tested my patience, when life threw curveballs I wasn't ready for, and even in moments when my own inner critic tried to drag me down. The results? Peace, strength, and clarity. No matter how chaotic the world around me became, I stayed grounded, and I'm here to show you how to do the same. Here's the thing, emotions aren't the enemy. They're signals, messages from within, telling you something about your environment or yourself. The problem starts when we let those signals take over, pulling us into anger, fear, or sadness without stopping to think. But when you learn to pause, to reflect, and to respond with intention, you unlock a power most people don't even realize they have. This journey isn't about suppressing who you are. It's about unleashing the best version of yourself. It's about stepping into every situation with calm confidence, knowing that nothing can rattle you, not other people's opinions, not unexpected challenges, not even your own self-doubt. You don't have to be perfect to start. Trust me, I wasn't. But every small step you take, every moment you choose calm over chaos, builds a stronger, more resilient you. The tools are simple, but the results are extraordinary. By the end of this, you'll not only understand how to control your emotions, you'll feel what it's like to live with unshakable peace and strength. Let's get started. Let me ask you something. How often do you feel overwhelmed by things you can't control? Maybe it's the fear of disappointing someone, frustration over how someone treated you, or anxiety about an outcome you can't guarantee. It's exhausting, isn't it? Feeling like you're trapped in this endless loop of trying to manage things that refuse to stay in your grip. I've been there. I've felt the weight of carrying expectations, opinions, and results that weren't mine to control. And let me tell you, letting go was the hardest but most freeing thing I've ever done. That's what I want to share with you now. How to break free from the emotional chains that keep you tied to things you were never meant to hold on to. It starts with one key shift: learning the power of detachment. Detachment isn't about apathy. It's not giving up or caring less. In fact, it's about caring in the right way, where your peace of mind isn't dependent on external events or the actions of others. Detachment is choosing what deserves your energy and deciding to stop being emotionally tethered to things you can't control. It's freedom, and once you embrace it, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. When I started practicing detachment, the first thing I realized was how much of my stress came from attaching my happiness to outcomes. If things went well, I was overjoyed. If they didn't, I spiraled. It was exhausting to ride that emotional roller coaster, and it hit me. The highs and lows were all tied to something outside myself. That's when I decided to step off the ride entirely. Detachment begins with shifting focus from the external to the internal. Instead of pouring your energy into things you can't control, like how someone reacts to you or whether a plan works out perfectly, you start investing that energy in what you can control: your own mindset, your actions, and your responses. This is where real emotional resilience is built. Let's talk about people's opinions, because this one used to get me every time. I'd obsess over what someone thought of me, replaying interactions in my head and wondering if I said the wrong thing. It was draining. Then one day, I stopped. I realized that their opinion wasn't my business, it was theirs. What I could control was showing up authentically and treating people with respect. Beyond that, it wasn't up to me, and that was freeing. Another area where detachment changed my life was in dealing with outcomes. I used to tie my self-worth to results. If I failed, I'd beat myself up for weeks. If I succeeded, I'd ride the high until the next challenge knocked me down. It wasn't healthy. When I embraced detachment, I started focusing on the process instead of the result. I put in my best effort and let go of the rest. Success became a bonus, not a necessity, and failure became a teacher, not a punishment. Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling, it means you stop over-feeling. You're no longer a puppet to external events, yanked around by strings of frustration, fear, or disappointment. Instead, you become steady, grounded, and in control of your emotional energy. One powerful way I've practiced detachment is by reframing challenges. Instead of seeing them as obstacles that ruin my plans, I see them as opportunities to learn and grow. If a door closes, I remind myself that I still have the power to knock on others, or even build my own. This mindset not only makes me more resilient, but also helps me stay calm when life throws curveballs. Another key to detachment is recognizing that not everything deserves a reaction. In the past, I jumped to respond to every slight, every inconvenience, every setback. It felt like I needed to defend my peace constantly. But when I started letting go of the need to react, something amazing happened. I actually felt more peaceful. Some things didn't need my attention, and I stopped giving them more energy than they deserved. Here's a practical example. I once had a coworker who constantly tested my patience. They'd nitpick, criticize, and push my buttons just to get a reaction. Before practicing detachment, I'd take the bait every time, letting their actions ruin my mood. But when I started focusing on what I could control, my response, I saw the situation differently. I stayed calm, didn't engage in their negativity, and suddenly their power over me vanished. Detachment also means accepting impermanence. Everything in life is temporary, the good and the bad. When you learn to let go of attachments to outcomes or opinions, you make room for something better. Gratitude for the present moment. You stop gripping so tightly, and in that release, you find peace. I won't lie to you, this isn't easy. It takes practice. There were times when I slipped back into old habits, obsessing over things I couldn't control. But every time, I reminded myself of one simple truth. My peace is more important than my need to control. That mantra has saved me more times than I can count. One of the best parts about detachment is that it doesn't just help you, it helps the people around you. When you're no longer ruled by your emotions, you show up as a calmer, more present version of yourself. You can offer genuine support without being overwhelmed by their problems. You can lead by example, showing others what it looks like to live with emotional freedom. Detachment isn't about shutting down your emotions. It's about channeling them wisely. It's about knowing where to place your energy and when to walk away. It's about valuing your inner peace so much that you refuse to let anything or anyone take it from you. I'll leave you with this. The next time you feel pulled into stress, worry, or frustration, ask yourself, is this within my control? If it's not, let it go. Protect your peace like it's the most precious thing you own, because it is. And when you do, you'll discover a kind of strength and freedom you never thought possible. Letting go of what's beyond your control is liberating, but it's only part of the equation. What happens when something lands directly in your path? An argument, a moment of disrespect, or a wave of unexpected emotion? This is where emotional regulation comes into play. It's not enough to detach from external events. You also need to master your internal world. How you respond in those crucial moments defines your ability to lead with wisdom and strength. I used to think reacting quickly made me decisive. If someone upset me, I'd snap back or retreat into silence, thinking I was standing my ground. But what I didn't realize was that those reactions weren't strength. They were impulses, fueled by emotion rather than reason. Each time I felt drained afterward, wishing I'd handled things differently. Then I learned the value of pausing, reflecting, and choosing my response carefully. That shift didn't just change my interactions, it transformed how I felt about myself. Emotional regulation starts with one critical skill: learning to pause. It's simple, but incredibly powerful. When something stirs up anger, frustration, or even sadness, the initial reaction often feels uncontrollable. But in that moment, there's a split-second gap, a tiny space where you can either act on impulse or step back and decide. That gap is where all your power lies. I've found that pausing isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about acknowledging them without letting them dictate your actions. By pausing, you give yourself the chance to act in alignment with your values rather than reacting from a place of raw emotion. Reflection is what makes the pause so transformative. During that pause, I ask myself questions. What am I really feeling right now? What triggered this response? Is this reaction serving me or the situation? These questions create clarity. Sometimes the anger I felt wasn't really about the person in front of me. It was rooted in something deeper, like stress or unmet expectations. Other times, I realized that reacting impulsively wouldn't solve the issue. It would just escalate things. Reflection helps me separate the emotion from the action. One thing that helped me immensely was shifting from judgment to curiosity toward myself and others. Instead of labeling an emotion as bad or weak, I started to see it as information. Anger might be signaling that a boundary was crossed. Sadness might point to something I need to process. Even anxiety, as uncomfortable as it is, often reveals where I need to focus. By treating emotions as messengers rather than enemies, I learned to work with them instead of fighting against them. Another key aspect of emotional regulation is understanding the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is immediate, unfiltered, and often driven by the heat of the moment. Responding, on the other hand, is deliberate. It's about taking the time to process the situation and choose an action that aligns with your long-term goals rather than short-term feelings. For me, this has meant learning to slow down in conversations, especially during conflicts. Instead of firing back when someone says something hurtful, I take a breath, assess the situation, and decide what's worth addressing. Often, the most powerful response is no response at all. One of the most effective tools I've used is reframing. Reframing means shifting your perspective on a situation to see it in a new light. For example, if someone criticizes me, my initial reaction might be defensiveness or hurt. But when I reframe, I ask myself, is there any truth in what they're saying? If so, how can I use it to grow? And if their words are simply meant to provoke, I remind myself that their behavior says more about them than it does about me. Reframing doesn't just help you manage your emotions, it empowers you to take control of the narrative. Breathing techniques have been another game changer for me. When emotions run high, your body often reacts before your mind catches up. Your heart races, your chest tightens, and it feels like everything is spiraling. Controlled breathing interrupts that cycle. I use a simple method. Inhale deeply for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, and exhale slowly for 6 counts. This activates the body's calming response, giving me the physical grounding I need to think clearly. It might sound too simple, but in moments of stress, it's like hitting a reset button. I've also found that practicing gratitude can preempt emotional overreactions. When you make a habit of focusing on what's good and stable in your life, it creates a baseline of contentment that's harder to shake. For me, this means starting and ending my day by reflecting on 3 things I'm grateful for. Even on tough days, there's always something, a kind word from a friend, a moment of laughter, or just the fact that I made it through. Gratitude doesn't eliminate challenges, but it shifts your focus away from what's wrong and toward what's right. Emotional regulation is deeply connected to self-awareness. The more you understand your emotional triggers, the better equipped you are to manage them. I started keeping a journal where I'd write about moments when my emotions got the better of me. Over time, patterns emerged, certain situations, people, or even my own habits that consistently sparked strong reactions. By identifying these triggers, I could prepare for them or avoid them altogether. Another lesson I've learned is the importance of not taking things personally. When someone lashes out or criticizes, it's easy to feel attacked. But more often than not, their behavior is a reflection of their own struggles, not a judgment of your worth. Realizing this has saved me so much unnecessary stress. Instead of internalizing their actions, I focus on staying grounded in my own truth. Practicing self-compassion has been crucial in this journey. There were times when I'd beat myself up for losing my temper or reacting poorly, but I realized that harsh self-criticism only made things worse. Now, when I stumble, I remind myself that growth is a process. Each moment is a chance to learn, adjust, and do better next time. The beauty of emotional regulation is that it's a skill you can strengthen. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. It's like building a muscle. Each pause, each moment of reflection adds to your resilience. Over time, you'll find that the things that once triggered you no longer have the same power. You'll respond to life's challenges with clarity and calm, knowing that your emotions are tools, not tyrants. When you learn to pause, reflect, and respond intentionally, you unlock a kind of strength that most people never experience. But let me ask you this: what happens when the chaos never stops? When life throws one challenge after another, leaving no time to recover? That's where the real work begins. It's not enough to regulate emotions in the moment. You need a foundation, a stronghold where your peace remains untouched by the world's noise. This isn't just about surviving chaos. It's about thriving within it by building an inner fortress that can't be shaken. When I first started focusing on inner peace, I thought it meant eliminating stress or avoiding conflict altogether. But the truth is, chaos is inevitable. Life doesn't pause just because you need a break. What I realized is that peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the ability to remain calm despite it. It's creating a space within yourself where you can retreat and reset, no matter what's happening around you. One of the most powerful ways I've cultivated inner peace is through daily reflection. Reflection isn't just about reviewing the day's events. It's about stepping back and finding clarity. I like to set aside time in the evening to think about what went well, what challenged me, and how I responded. This practice isn't about judgment, it's about growth. When I notice that I let stress get the better of me, I take note of what triggered it and how I can handle it differently next time. Over time, this habit has helped me approach each day with more intention and less reactivity. Mindfulness has also been a game changer for me. Mindfulness isn't about sitting cross-legged for hours or emptying your mind. It's about being fully present. I started small, focusing on my breath during moments of tension. That simple act of grounding myself brought a sense of calm I hadn't experienced before. From there, I began to incorporate mindfulness into everyday activities. Whether I'm eating, walking, or even washing dishes, I focus on the sensations and the moment itself. This practice reminds me that peace isn't something you find, it's something you create in the now. One perspective that has been incredibly helpful is what the Stoics call the view from above. This practice involves stepping back mentally and looking at the bigger picture. When I feel overwhelmed, I remind myself how small this moment is in the grand scheme of things. I picture myself looking down at my life, my city, even the world, and suddenly, the weight of whatever I'm facing feels lighter. This shift in perspective doesn't diminish the importance of my challenges, but it helps me approach them with a calmer, clearer mind. Another element of building inner peace is learning to create intentional stillness. We live in a world that values constant activity, but I've learned that stillness is where real strength is cultivated. For me, this means carving out time each day to simply be. It could be 10 minutes of silence, a quiet walk, or journaling my thoughts. These moments of stillness act as a reset, clearing away the noise and grounding me in the present. Boundaries have also been essential in protecting my inner peace. I used to think I had to be available to everyone all the time, but that only led to burnout and resentment. Now, I prioritize what and who gets my energy. This doesn't mean shutting people out. It means being intentional about how I spend my time. When I say no to something that doesn't align with my priorities, I'm saying yes to my peace. Gratitude has been another cornerstone of my inner fortress. There's something incredibly calming about focusing on what's good in your life, even when things feel difficult. Every morning I make it a point to acknowledge 3 things I'm grateful for. Sometimes they're big, like good health or a supportive friend, and sometimes they're small, like the way the sun feels on my face. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's lacking to what's abundant, creating a sense of contentment that chaos can't touch. One of the more challenging but rewarding lessons I've learned is the importance of letting go. Holding on to anger, regret, or control only weighs you down. There was a time when I'd replay conversations or situations in my mind, wishing I'd handled them differently. But I realized that dwelling on the past only steals from the present. Now I practice acknowledging those feelings, learning from them, and then releasing them. Letting go isn't weakness, it's choosing peace over conflict, both within and without. Inner peace also requires simplifying your life. Complexity breeds stress, so I've made it a point to streamline wherever I can. This might mean decluttering my space, reducing commitments, or focusing on fewer but more meaningful goals. Simplifying isn't about doing less, it's about doing what matters most. The less mental and physical clutter you have, the easier it is to maintain a sense of calm. Resilience is another pillar of inner peace. Resilience isn't just about bouncing back, it's about being unshakable in the first place. For me, this means practicing self-discipline and consistency. Whether it's sticking to a morning routine, keeping my commitments, or showing up for myself, every small act of discipline strengthens the foundation of my inner calm. It's like building a muscle. Each effort adds to your strength. One thing I've learned is that inner peace isn't a destination, it's a practice. There will be days when it feels easy and days when it feels impossible, but every moment you choose calm over chaos, reflection over reaction, and gratitude over frustration, you're strengthening your fortress. Over time, that foundation becomes so strong that even the biggest storms can't shake it. When your inner peace becomes strong, it's like carrying a calm harbor inside you, no matter how wild the storm gets. But even the strongest fortresses need protection from outside forces. One of the greatest threats to your peace isn't the chaos of daily life, it's the people and environments that drain you. Toxic influences can seep into your life like smoke through a crack in the door, clouding your judgment and stealing your clarity before you even realize what's happening. Guarding your mind is about recognizing these threats, setting boundaries, and maintaining your peace without losing your compassion. I've learned this lesson the hard way. There were times when I let people's negativity and constant demands take up too much space in my life. At first, I told myself I could handle it, that being kind meant putting up with everything. But over time, I realized that tolerating toxicity wasn't kindness, it was self-neglect. And when I finally began guarding my mind, it wasn't just about distancing myself, it was about creating space for clarity, positivity, and growth. The first step to guarding your mind is learning to recognize toxic influences. Sometimes they're obvious. Someone who constantly criticizes, belittles, or undermines you. Other times, they're subtle. A friend who always brings drama, a colleague who thrives on negativity, or even a habit of overindulging in social media that leaves you feeling drained. I started paying attention to how I felt after interacting with certain people or situations. Did I feel energized and uplifted, or did I feel exhausted and frustrated? That awareness was a game changer. Once I could see the toxic patterns, I realized I had a choice. I could either let them continue or take control. Taking control doesn't mean cutting people off or avoiding conflict at all costs. It means setting boundaries that protect your peace. For example, I once had a friend who would vent endlessly about their problems but never take steps to solve them. It was draining, but I felt guilty about pulling away. Eventually, I decided to set a boundary. I told them I cared about them, but I couldn't always be their sounding board. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. To my surprise, that boundary didn't ruin our friendship. It actually made it healthier. Boundaries are one of the most powerful tools for guarding your mind. They're not walls to shut people out. They're fences that protect what matters most. Setting boundaries requires clarity and courage. You need to be clear about what you will and won't tolerate, and you need to be courageous enough to enforce those limits. For me, this meant learning to say no without guilt. If something didn't align with my values or drained my energy, I gave myself permission to step away. It was one of the most liberating things I've ever done. Guarding your mind also means being mindful of the environments you allow yourself to be in. Toxicity isn't just about people. It can also come from the places you spend your time or the media you consume. I used to spend hours scrolling through social media only to end up feeling worse about myself. It wasn't the platform's fault, it was my lack of boundaries with it. When I started limiting my screen time and curating what I followed, I noticed a huge difference in my mental clarity. Compassion plays a big role in this process. It's easy to feel anger or resentment toward toxic people, but I've learned that those feelings only hurt me in the long run. Instead, I try to approach these situations with compassion, not to excuse their behavior, but to understand that their actions often come from their own pain or struggles. When I stopped taking their negativity personally, it became easier to let go of the emotional weight they brought into my life. Detachment is another key aspect of guarding your mind. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. For me, this meant letting go of the need to fix people or win their approval. I used to think I could help everyone if I just tried hard enough, but that mindset only left me frustrated and burned out. Now, I focus on what's within my control, my own actions, thoughts, and boundaries. I can offer support without losing myself in someone else's chaos. One of the most surprising lessons I've learned is that guarding your mind often starts with guarding your time. Time is your most precious resource, and how you spend it shapes your thoughts, emotions, and overall well-being. I began to prioritize the people and activities that truly mattered to me and stopped giving time to things that didn't. This shift wasn't about being selfish, it was about being intentional. The more I valued my time, the less room there was for toxicity to creep in. Self-awareness is essential in this process. Sometimes the toxic influence isn't external, it's internal. Negative self-talk, limiting beliefs, and unresolved emotions can sabotage your peace just as much as an unhealthy relationship. I started practicing self-reflection to identify these internal barriers. Journaling became a daily habit where I could untangle my thoughts and confront the ways I was getting in my own way. It wasn't always comfortable, but it was worth it. Another way I guard my mind is by surrounding myself with positivity. This doesn't mean avoiding challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It means intentionally seeking out people, places, and activities that uplift and inspire me. Whether it's spending time with supportive friends, reading books that challenge me to grow, or simply enjoying a quiet moment in nature, these positive influences act as a buffer against negativity. One thing I've noticed is that guarding your mind doesn't happen overnight. It's a skill you develop over time, and it requires consistency. There are still moments when negativity slips through or when I let my guard down, but each time I remind myself why this practice matters. Every step I take to protect my peace strengthens my ability to navigate life with clarity and confidence. Guarding your mind isn't about isolating yourself from the world. It's about choosing what you let into your inner space. It's about valuing your mental and emotional health enough to prioritize it, even when it's uncomfortable. When you learn to recognize toxic influences, set boundaries, and cultivate positivity, you create a life that feels lighter, freer, and more aligned with your true self. Once you begin to guard your mind and create space for clarity and peace, something incredible happens. You start to see life differently. The struggles that once felt overwhelming now appear as something else entirely: opportunities. Challenges aren't just hurdles meant to test your patience or endurance. They're the raw materials that shape you, strengthen you, and build your emotional resilience. I've learned this firsthand, and it's one of the most liberating perspectives you can embrace. There was a time when I resented challenges. I viewed every obstacle as an unfair burden, something to fight against or avoid. But the more I resisted, the more drained I felt. Then, I came across a simple yet powerful idea. Every challenge carries within it the potential for growth. It changed everything. Instead of dreading obstacles, I started asking myself, what is this here to teach me? That single question transformed my relationship with adversity. Challenges are the gym for your emotions. Just as lifting heavier weights builds physical strength, facing difficulties strengthens your emotional muscles. When you stop seeing challenges as threats and start viewing them as tools, you take back control. You're no longer a passive victim of circumstances. You become an active participant in your own growth. This shift in mindset doesn't happen overnight, but every step you take toward it makes you stronger. The first lesson I've learned about challenges is that they reveal your inner strength. Often, we don't realize how capable we are until we're forced to confront something difficult. I remember a time when I faced a situation that felt impossible, a personal loss that shook me to my core. In the moment, I didn't think I could handle it. But day by day, I found ways to keep moving forward. Looking back, that experience showed me strength I didn't know I had. Challenges have a way of uncovering your hidden reserves of courage, resilience, and determination. Another powerful aspect of challenges is their ability to teach you patience. In a world that demands instant results, patience can feel like a lost art. But challenges remind you that growth takes time. They teach you to stay steady, even when progress feels slow. I've learned that patience isn't passive, it's active. It's choosing to keep going, even when the outcome is uncertain. That perseverance builds emotional endurance, making you less likely to crumble under future pressures. Challenges also force you to adapt. Life rarely goes as planned, and being flexible in the face of unexpected obstacles is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. I used to resist change, clinging to what was familiar, even when it no longer served me. But challenges pushed me out of my comfort zone, teaching me to let go of rigid expectations and embrace new possibilities. Adaptability isn't just about survival, it's about thriving in any situation. One of the most surprising lessons I've learned from challenges is the importance of perspective. When you're in the thick of a struggle, it's easy to focus on what's going wrong. But stepping back and looking at the bigger picture can completely shift your mindset. I found that asking myself, how will this matter in a year, often puts things into perspective. What feels overwhelming today might just be a small chapter in your larger story. Gratitude can also play a role in embracing challenges. This might sound strange. How can you feel grateful for something difficult? But I've found that even the hardest experiences carry gifts. They teach you lessons, reveal your strengths, and sometimes lead you to opportunities you never would have found otherwise. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring the pain of a challenge. It means acknowledging the growth it brings. One of the hardest but most valuable lessons I've learned is that challenges often highlight what truly matters. When life feels easy, it's tempting to focus on superficial things, status, comfort, or approval. But challenges strip away those distractions, forcing you to confront your core values. I've faced situations that made me question everything I thought I wanted, only to realize that what truly mattered was something deeper: authenticity, connection, and purpose. Challenges have a way of aligning you with your true priorities. Facing challenges also builds humility. It's easy to feel confident when everything is going smoothly, but adversity reminds you that you're not invincible. This isn't a bad thing. Humility keeps you grounded. It teaches you to approach life with openness and curiosity, rather than arrogance. I've found that humility doesn't weaken you. It makes you stronger by helping you learn from every experience, good or bad. Another powerful tool in embracing challenges is self-compassion. It's easy to be hard on yourself when you're struggling, but that only makes things harder. I've learned that treating myself with kindness during difficult times isn't indulgent, it's essential. Self-compassion gives you the strength to keep going, even when you feel like you're falling short. It's the voice that says, "You're doing the best you can, and that's enough." Challenges also teach you to value effort over outcomes. There have been times when I gave my all to something only to see it fail. At first, I felt defeated, but over time I realized that the effort itself was a victory. Every step I took, every lesson I learned, added to my growth. Focusing on effort rather than results has made me more resilient because I know that no challenge is ever wasted. Another lesson is the power of letting go. Challenges often bring uncertainty, and trying to control every outcome only adds to the stress. I've learned that surrendering to the process doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting that things will unfold as they're meant to. This mindset has brought me a sense of peace, even in the midst of chaos. Challenges connect you to others. Struggles remind us that we're not alone, and they create opportunities for empathy and connection. I've found that sharing my experiences with others and hearing their stories in return has been one of the most healing parts of facing adversity. Challenges can isolate you if you let them, but they can also bring you closer to those who truly understand. Embracing challenges isn't about pretending they're easy or enjoyable. It's about recognizing their value, even when they're uncomfortable. It's about trusting that every obstacle carries the potential for growth and that each one leaves you stronger, wiser, and more prepared for whatever comes next. Challenges aren't something to fear, they're something to embrace, because they're the forge in which your resilience is built. Let's keep exploring this together and uncover even more ways to turn adversity into strength. Let me leave you with this. Mastering your emotions isn't about becoming cold or shutting the world out. It's about choosing how you show up. It's about building strength from within so that no external storm, no toxic influence, no fleeting challenge can shake your foundation. Through detachment, you've learned to let go of what's beyond your control. By regulating your reactions, you've gained the ability to reflect before responding. With inner peace, you've created a calm, unshakable space within yourself. And by embracing challenges, you've turned life's adversities into stepping stones for growth. The tools we've explored, detachment, reflection, boundaries, gratitude, and perspective, aren't quick fixes. They're lifelong practices that day by day will help you become the person who rises above the noise, the chaos, and even the worst circumstances with clarity and purpose. It's a journey, not a destination. And each step you take toward mastering your emotions is a step toward reclaiming your power. Now, I want to hear from you. What's the biggest challenge you face when it comes to mastering your emotions? Or, which Stoic principle resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I'd love to continue this conversation with you. Your insight might even help someone else who's on this same journey. And if you found value in this, don't stop here. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of people who are committed to living with strength, resilience, and purpose. Together, we're building something powerful. Thanks for being a part of it, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong.